Do you remember when, the stories we read about that Hitler was fascinated with Antarctica? So he goes out there and then is investigating what is going on, what's out there. We're curious about it. Then U.S. sends a bunch of people. So wait a minute, we can't get Germany to figure something out before we do. And then all of a sudden, everybody gets on the same page when it comes down to Antarctica. There's representation that they have. A bunch of these countries are representing what's going on there, and they're very unified for that topic, right? A little bit weird, but I can understand it. What do they know that they don't want the rest of the world to know? I don't know, right? Is the idea of UFOs currently like that as well? Like, is there a board where people from around, like a World Economic Forum, is there a board like that where representative from different countries that if aliens from another country want to attack us, it becomes Earth against everyone else. It doesn't become, a U.S. or China or Russia. You're borderless now because your borders is the space, right? Does anything like that exist?
So, Ronald Reagan once famously said a very interesting quote where he talked about, imagine if we all of a sudden faced with the reality of let's say an alien threat, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden how our petty differences that we have with one another and our other countries would probably completely evaporate overnight.
Sure.
We'd all be solidarity and sing kumbaya and, work together. The reality is that there were very specific reasons why the U.S. government did not want to engage in a conversation about the UAP topic. And it makes sense. So let me go into that a little bit and see if this maybe scratches your itch on your question. So let's look at when the U.S. government was really interested in UAPs. Well, it really goes all the way back to the 1950s and all the way through the 60s and the 70s. We had Project Blue Book, and there are reports you can see online right now, highly classified documents, very classified, that were classified, that have since been declassified and released through the Freedom of Information Act process. So now anybody can get online and pull some of these documents up, and you will see that there have been UAP encounters over our sensitive military installations, like, for example, a research center like Oak Ridge National Laboratory or Savannah River Facility, where we were doing certain things, technologically speaking. These UAP have been seen a lot and have been investigated continuously by the U.S. government. So back to the issue here regarding UAP and regarding historical, and you asked if there's like this international group of people. At the height of the Cold War, we had this real threat with the then Soviet Union, right? They had nukes, we had nukes, and we were playing this winner-takes-all chess game that we called the Cold War, which, by the way, in reality was pretty hot. There was a lot of proxy wars, right? It wasn't cold at all. And so the generals say to themselves, look, we've got this real threat over here. Yeah, we've got these other things, but they're not really doing anything overly provocative, and there's not a whole lot we can do about them right now. Let's just focus on the Russia threat, and then later on, when we have time, we can worry about this other stuff, right? And then you have the other mindset in the government, which is our job in the government is to be solution-oriented. It's not a great conversation to have any government with their people to say, oh, look, by the way, there's something over here that's, doing stuff that we can't replicate and there's nothing we can do about it, right? That's not a great conversation to have until you have a solution. So the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, being solution-focused, don't want to admit there's a problem until you have a solution. Case in point, here's a perfect example for you. When we started flying the U-2 spy airplane, which was built by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and commissioned by the Central Intelligence Agency, we were flying it over mainland Russia. And in contravention, that's right, in contravention of the treaty that we had with the Russians, that we weren't going to fly reconnaissance missions over their country. Now, they didn't react. So we thought this plane flew so high and so fast that the Russians couldn't see us, right? Because Russians didn't do anything. It wasn't until the Russians were able to develop an SA-2 surface-to-air missile and successfully shoot one down did they ever admit to their people and the world that they've been watching us, right? Why admit a problem for where there's no solution? It wasn't until the Russians could actually shoot one down that they said,
you look weak.
That's right. So they've been saying, hey, we've been tracking every one of your flights, but now we can shoot them down, right? So that is also part of that mindset, right? Why? And there were some studies done back in the 60s and 70s, actual real studies for the government, where the government asked the question, look, if we're truthful about UAPs and we decide to disclose the truth about UFOs, what would the net result be on the population? And they came back with the unanimous no, don't do it. That the American population absolutely cannot have this discussion. They cannot handle the truth. It will cause.
Who said this? Who was the president?
So it wasn't a president. Actually, it was a study done. I think it was a Rand Corporation that did the study. It's a very famous study, and basically said that the American people, this would cause people to lose faith in their religions, their faith and confidence in government, and it was basically a definitive no. Now, there was also—
What year is this?
There were two studies. So I believe one for sure was in the 70s. I think one was in the 60s. But you can look them up online.
Okay.
They're there. And I think Rand Corporation was one, and then there was another one. When we're done with this, I'll get you the actual details, because I don't want to give you incorrect information. So there's that problem too, right? So why admit an issue for which there's no solution, which makes sense, especially when you are a world superpower, right? You don't want to look weak, exactly like you said. And it's really not that uncommon. There are other examples throughout history where governments have kept things quiet until they had a solution for it, right? Now, it turns out that I believe Americans can handle the truth, because we're having a conversation now, you and me and your audience, right? And no one's making a run on the bank, and we all realize we have mortgages to pay, and we have to go to PTA meetings and take the kids to soccer. If you talk to the younger generation now, they kind of look at it and go, meh, right? They have this reaction where our old generation was like, oh, you can't tell anybody, and we want to have this active campaign to actually suppress this information and make people look like idiots. The newer generation, I think, is a lot more open to this topic. They have probably because of the pervasiveness of information now, and the cell phone technology, they can pretty much pull up any information anywhere in the world instantly and have it translated in whatever language they want. And so I think they're maybe a little more accepting and wise to this.
For the last 4 years, every time we do podcasts, I have to ask Rob or somebody, hey, can you pull up this news? Can you pull up that? Which way do these guys lean? Can you go back to the timeline of— Eventually, after asking so many questions, I said, why don't we design the website that we want aggregated? We don't write the articles. We feed all of it in using AI. So 8 months ago, I hired 15 machine learning engineers. They put together our news site called vtnews.ai. What this allows you to do when you go to it, if you go to that story right there that says Trump proposes overtime pay, click on it. It'll tell you how many sources are reporting on this from the left. If you go to the right, Rob, it says left sources, click on it. Those are all the left sources. If I want to go to right sources, those are the two. If I want to go to center, I go there. Now, if I want to go all the way to the top and I want to find out a lopsided story, a story that only one side is reporting on, either the left or the right. So if you notice the first one, will say Zelensky announces release of 49 Ukrainians from Russia. Notice more people on the left are reporting on that than the right. If I go to the middle one, same thing. If I go to the right one, same thing. You can see what stories are lopsided. And if I pick one of the stories, pick the first story, click on a Trump one, proposes overtime tax cuts. To the right on the AI, I can ask any question I want, but click on the first question that has it. It says, what is the political context and potential motivation behind the Trump's new tax cut proposal? Click on the question mark. It explains exactly what the motives are. So for you to use, whether you're doing a podcast, you're in the middle of a podcast, or you just want to know it for yourself, you're busy like myself. And last but not least, this is all AI doing this, so machine learning engineers. Go all the way to the top. I can go to timelines, and see how far back a story goes. Pick the Israel-Palestinian conflict. If I want to go to that and go back and see why are those 2 days a big spike, I'll have Rob pull it over to go to those 2 days with a big spike, and I'll see exactly what happened on that day or the previous day, and many other features vtnews.ai has. So simply go to vtnews.ai. There's a freemium model, there's a premium, and then there's the insider. If you want to have unlimited access to the AI, click on the VTAI Insider. You can now become a member effectively today.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.